Section 16 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Irie. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 7, Part 1. Presentation of artificial flowers made in the palace. Chia Lian disports himself with Xi Feng. Pao-yü meets Jing Zhong at a family party. To resume our narrative, Chou Jui's wife, having seen old goody Liu off, speedily came to report the visit to Madame Wang. But contrary to her expectation, she did not find Madame Wang in the drawing room, and it was after inquiring of the waiting maids that she eventually learnt that she had just gone over to have a chat with Aunt Hsüeh. Mrs. Chou, upon hearing this, hastily went out by the eastern corner door, and through the yard on the east, into the pear fragrance court. As soon as she reached the entrance, she caught sight of Madame Wang's waiting maid, Chin Shuaner, playing about on the terrace steps, with a young girl who had just let her hair grow. When they saw Chou Jui's wife approach, they forthwith surmised that she must have some message to deliver, so they pursed up their lips and directed her to the inner room. Chou Jui's wife gently raised the curtain screen, and upon entering discovered Madame Wang in voluble conversation with Aunt Hsüeh about family questions and people in general. Mrs. Chou did not venture to disturb them, and accordingly came into the inner room, where she found Hsüeh Pao-ch'ai in a house dress, with her hair simply twisted into a knot round the top of the head, sitting on the inner edge of the stove couch, leaning on a small divan table, in the act of copying a pattern for embroidery with the mating maid Ying Er. When she saw her enter, Pao-ch'ai hastily put down her pencil, and turning round with a face beaming with smiles, "Sister Chou," she said, "take a seat." Chou Jui's wife likewise promptly returned the smile. "How is my young lady?" she inquired, as she sat down on the edge of the couch. "I haven't seen you come over on the other side for 2 or 3 days. Has Mr. Pao-yü perhaps given you offence?" "What an idea!" exclaimed Pao-ch'ai, with a smile. "It's simply that I've had for the last couple of days my old complaint again, and that I've in consequence kept quiet all this time and looked after myself." "Is that it?" asked Chou Jui's wife. "But after all, what rooted kind of complaint are you subject to, miss? You should lose really no time in sending for a doctor to diagnose it, and give you something to make you all right. With your tender years, to have an organic ailment is indeed no trifle." Pao-ch'ai laughed when she heard these remarks. "Pray," she said, "don't allude to this again. For this ailment of mine I've seen, I can't tell you how many doctors, taken no end of medicine, and spent I don't know how much money; but the more we did so, not the least bit of relief did I see. Lucky enough, we eventually came across a bald-pated bonze, whose specialty was the cure of nameless illnesses. We therefore sent for him to see me, and he said that I had brought this along with me from the womb as a sort of inflammatory virus, that luckily I had a constitution strong and hale, so that it didn't matter, and that it would be of no avail if I took pills or any medicines. He then told me a prescription from abroad, and gave me also a packet of certain powder as a preparation, with a peculiar smell and strange flavour. He advised me, whenever my complaint broke out, to take a pill, which would be sure to put me right again. And this has, after all, strange to say, done me a great deal of good." "What kind of prescription is this one from abroad, I wonder?" remarked Mrs. Chou. "If you, miss, would only tell me, it would be worth our while bearing it in mind, and recommending it to others; and if ever we came across any one afflicted with this disease, we would also be doing a charitable deed." "You'd better not ask for the prescription," rejoined Pao-ch'ai, smiling. "Why, it's enough to wear one out with perplexity. The necessaries and ingredients are few and all easy to get, but it would be difficult to find the lucky moment. You want 12 ounces of the pollen of the white peony, which flowers in spring, 12 ounces of the pollen of the white summer lily, 12 ounces of the pollen of the autumn hibiscus flower, and 12 ounces of the white plum in bloom in the winter. You take the 4 kinds of pollen, then put them in the sun, on the very day of the vernal equinox of the succeeding year, to get dry, and then you mix them with the powder and pound them well together. You again want 12 mace of water, fallen on rain water day." "Good gracious!" exclaimed Mrs. Chou promptly, as she laughed. "From all you say, why you want 3 years' time! And what if no rain falls on rain water day? What would one do then?" "Quite so," Pao-ch'ai remarked smilingly. "How can there be such an opportune rain on that very day? But to wait is also the best thing. There's nothing else to be done. Besides, you want 12 mace of dew collected on white dew day, and 12 mace of the hoarfrost gathered on frost descent day, and 12 mace of snow fallen on slight snow day. You next take these 4 kinds of waters and mix them with the other ingredients, and make pills of the size of lung nan. You keep them in an old porcelain jar, and bury them under the roots of some flowers. And when the ailment betrays itself, you produce it and take a pill, washing it down with 2 candareens of a yellow cedar decoction." "Oh, mito fu!" cried Mrs. Chou, when she heard all this, bursting out laughing. "It's really enough to kill one! You might wait 10 years and find no such lucky moments." "Fortunate for me, however," pursued Pao-ch'ai, "in the course of a year or two, after the bonze had told me about this prescription, we got all the ingredients, and after much trouble we compounded a supply, which we have now brought along with us from the south to the north, and lies at present under the pear trees." "Has this medicine any name or other of its own?" further inquired Mrs. Chou. "It has a name," replied Pao-ch'ai. "The mangy headed bonze also told it me. He called it cold fragrance pill." Chou Jui's wife nodded her head as she heard these words. "What do you feel like, after all, when this complaint manifests itself?" she went on to ask. "Nothing much," replied Pao-ch'ai. "I simply pant and cough a bit, but after I've taken a pill, I get over it and it's all gone." Mrs. Chou was bent upon making some further remark, when madame Wang was suddenly heard to inquire, "Who is in here?" Mrs. Chou went out hurriedly and answered, and forthwith told her all about old goody Liu's visit. Having waited for a while, and seeing that madame Wang had nothing to say, she was on the point of retiring, when aunt Hsüeh unexpectedly remarked, smiling, "Wait a bit, I've something to give you to take along with you." And as she spoke she called for Hsiang Ling. The sound of the screen board against the sides of the door was heard, and in walked the waiting maid, who had been playing with Chin Ch'uan-erh. "Did my lady call?" she asked. "Bring that box of flowers," said Mrs. Hsüeh. Hsiang Ling assented, and brought from the other side a small embroidered silk box. "These," explained aunt Hsüeh, "are a new kind of flower, made in the palace. They consist of 12 twigs of flowers of piled gauze. I thought of them yesterday, and as they will, the pity is, only get old, if uselessly put away, why not give them to the girls to wear them in their hair? I meant to have sent them over yesterday, but I forgot all about them. You come to day most opportunely, and if you will take them with you, you shall have got them off my hands. To the 3 young ladies in your family, give 2 twigs each, and of the 6 that will remain, give a couple to Miss Lin, and the other 4 to lady Feng." "Better to keep them and give them to your daughter Pao-ch'ai to wear," observed madame Wang, "and have done with it. Why think of all the others?" "You don't know, sister," replied aunt Hsüeh, "what a crotchety thing Pao-ch'ai is. She has no liking for flour or powder." With these words on her lips, Chou Jui's wife took the box and walked out of the door of the room, perceiving that Chin Ch'uan-erh was still sunning herself outside. Chou Jui's wife asked her, "Isn't this Hsiang Ling, the waiting maid that we've often heard of as having been purchased just before the departure of the Hsüeh family for the capital, and on whose account there occurred some case of manslaughter or other?" "Of course it is she," replied Chin Ch'uan. But as they were talking, they saw Cheng Ling draw near smirkingly, and Chao Rei's wife at once seized her by the hand, and after minutely scrutinizing her face for a time, she turned round to Chin Ch'uan erh and smiled. "With these features she really resembles slightly the style of lady Jung of our eastern mansion." "So I too maintain," said Chin Ch'uan erh. Chou Jui's wife then asked Cheng Ling, "At what age did you enter this family? And where are your father and mother at present?" and also inquired, "In what year of your teens are you, and of what place are you a native?" But Cheng Ling, after listening to all these questions, simply nodded her head and replied, "I can't remember." When Mrs. Chou and Chin Ch'uan erh heard these words, their spirits changed to grief, and for a while they felt affected and wounded at heart; but in a short time Mrs. Chou brought the flowers into the room at the back of madame Wang's principal apartment. The fact is that dowager lady Chia had explained that as her granddaughters were too numerous, it would not be convenient to crowd them together in one place; that Pao-yü and Tai-yü should only remain with her in this part to break her loneliness, but that Ying ch'un, Tan ch'un and Hsi ch'un, the three of them, should move on this side in the three rooms within the antechamber at the back of madame lady Wang's quarters, and that Li Wan should be told off to be their attendant, and to keep an eye on them. Chou Jui's wife, therefore, on this occasion came first to these rooms as they were on her way, but she only found a few waiting maids assembled in the antechamber waiting silently to obey a call. Ying ch'un's waiting maid, Xueqi, together with Shi Shu, Tan ch'un's waiting maid, just at this moment raised the curtain and made their egress, each holding in her hand a teacup and saucer; and Chou Jui's wife, readily concluding that the young ladies were sitting together, also walked into the inner room, where she saw only Ying ch'un and Tan ch'un seated near the window, in the act of playing chess. Mrs. Chou presented the flowers and explained whence they came and what they were. The girls forthwith interrupted their game, and both with a courtesy expressed their thanks and directed the waiting maids to put the flowers away. Mrs. Chou complied with their wishes, and handing over the flowers, "Miss Hsi Ch'un," she remarked, "is not at home, and possibly she's over there with our old lady." "She's in that room, isn't she?" inquired the waiting maids. Mrs. Chou at these words readily came into the room on this side, where she found Hsi Ch'un in the company of a certain Chih Neng, a young nun of the moon reflected on water convent, talking and laughing together. On seeing Chou Jui's wife enter, Hsi Ch'un at once asked what she wanted, whereupon Chou Jui's wife opened the box of flowers and explained who had sent them. "I was just telling Chih Neng," remarked Hsi Ch'un, laughing, "that I also purpose shortly shaving my head and becoming a nun; and strange enough, here you again bring me flowers. But supposing I shave my head, where can I wear them?" They were all very much amused for a time with this remark, and Hsi Ch'un told her waiting maid, Ju Hua, to come and take over the flowers. "What time did you come over?" then inquired Mrs. Chou of Chih Neng. "Where is that bald-pated and crotchety superior of yours gone?" "We came," explained Chih Neng, "as soon as it was day. After calling upon madame Wang, my superior went over to pay a visit in the mansion of Mr. Yü, and told me to wait for her here." "Have you received," further asked Mrs. Chou, "the monthly allowance for incense offering due on the 15th or not?" "I can't say," replied Chih Neng. "Who is now in charge of the issue of the monthly allowances to the various temples?" interposed Hsi Ch'un, addressing Mrs. Chou, as soon as she heard what was said. "It's Yü Hsin," replied Chou Jui's wife, "who's entrusted with the charge." "That's how it is," observed Hsi Ch'un with a chuckle. "Soon after the arrival of the superior, Yü Hsin's wife came over and kept on whispering with her for some time, so I presume it must have been about this allowance." Mrs. Chou then went on to bandy a few words with Chih Neng, after which they came over to lady Feng's apartments. Proceeding by a narrow passage, she passed under Li Wan's back windows, and went along the wall ornamented with creepers on the west. Going out of the western side gate, she entered lady Feng's court, and walked over into the entrance hall, where she only found the waiting girl, Feng Er, sitting on the doorsteps of lady Feng's apartments. When she caught sight of Mrs. Chou approaching, she at once waved her hand, bidding her go to the eastern room. Chou Jui's wife understood her meaning, and hastily came on tiptoe to the chamber on the east, where she saw a nurse patting lady Feng's daughter to sleep. Mrs. Chou promptly asked the nurse, in a low tone of voice, "Is the young lady asleep at this early hour? But even if she is, I must wake her up." The nurse nodded her head in assent, but as these inquiries were being made, a sound of laughter came from over the other side in which lady Feng's voice could be detected, followed shortly after by the sound of a door opening, and out came P'ing Erh with a large brass basin in her hands, which she told Feng Er to fill with water and take inside. P'ing Erh forthwith entered the room on this side, and upon perceiving Chou Jui's wife, "What have you come here again for, my old lady?" she readily inquired. Chou Jui's wife rose without any delay and handed her the box. "I've come," said she, "to bring you a present of flowers." Upon hearing this, P'ing Erh opened the box and took out 4 sprigs, and turning round walked out of the room. In a short while she came from the inner room with 2 sprigs in her hand, and calling first of all Ts'ai Ming, she bade her take the flowers over to the mansion on the other side and present them to madame Jung, after which she asked Mrs. Chou to express her thanks on her return. Chou Jui's wife thereupon came over to dowager lady Chia's room on this side of the compound, and as she was going through the entrance hall, she casually came face to face with her daughter, got up in gala dress, just coming from the house of her mother-in-law. "What are you running over here for at this time?" promptly inquired Mrs. Chou. "Have you been well of late, mother?" asked her daughter. "I've been waiting for ever so long at home, but you never come out. What's there so pressing that has prevented you from returning home? I waited till I was tired, and then went on all alone, and paid my respects to our venerable lady. I'm now on my way to inquire about our lady Wang. What errand haven't you delivered as yet, ma, and what is it you're holding?" "Ay, as luck would have it," rejoined Chou Jui's wife smilingly, "old goody Liu came over to day, so that besides my own 101 duties, I've had to run about here and there ever so long, and all for her. While attending to these, Mrs. Hsüeh came across me and asked me to take these flowers to the young ladies, and I've been at it up to this very moment, and haven't done yet. But coming at this time, you must surely have something or other that you want me to do for you. What's it?" "Really, ma, you're quick at guessing," exclaimed her daughter with a smile. "I'll tell you what it's all about. The day before yesterday, your son-in-law had a glass of wine too many, and began altercating with some person or other, and some one, I don't know why, spread some evil report, saying that his antecedents were not clear, and lodged a charge against him at the Yamen, pressing the authorities to deport him to his native place. That's why I've come over to consult with you as to who we should appeal to do us this favour of helping us out of our dilemma." "I knew at once," Mrs. Chou remarked after listening, "that there was something wrong, but this is nothing hard to settle. Go home and wait for me. I'll come straight away, as soon as I've taken these flowers to Miss Lin. Our madame Wang and lady Secunda have both no leisure to attend to you now. So go back and wait for me. What's the use of so much hurry?" Her daughter, upon hearing this, forthwith turned round to go back, when she added as she walked away, "Mind, mother, and make haste." "All right," replied Chou Jui's wife, "of course I will. You are young yet, and without experience, and that's why you are in this flurry." As she spoke, she betook herself into Tai-yü's apartments. Contrary to her expectation, Tai-yü was not at this time in her own room, but in Pao-yü's, where they were amusing themselves in trying to solve the 9 strung rings puzzle. On entering, Mrs. Chou put on a smile. "Aunt Hsüeh," she explained, "has told me to bring these flowers and present them to you to wear in your hair." "What flowers?" exclaimed Pao-yü. "Bring them here and let me see them." As he uttered these words, he readily stretched out his hands and took them over, and upon opening the box and looking in, he discovered, in fact, 2 twigs of a novel and artistic kind of artificial flowers of piled gauze made in the palace. Tai-yü merely cast a glance at them as Pao-yü held them. "Have these flowers," she inquired eagerly, "been sent to me alone, or have all the other girls got some too?" "Each of the young ladies has the same," replied Mrs. Chou, "and these 2 twigs are intended for you, miss." Tai yü forced a smile. "Oh, I see," she observed. "If all the others hadn't chosen, even these which remain over wouldn't have been given to me." Chou Jui's wife did not utter a word in reply. "Sister Chou, what took you over on the other side?" asked Pao yü. "I was told that our madame Wang was over there," explained Mrs. Chou, "and as I went to give her a message, aunt Hsüeh seized the opportunity to ask me to bring over these flowers." "What was cousin Pao-ch'ai doing at home?" asked Pao yü. "How is it she's not even been over for these few days?" "She's not quite well," remarked Mrs. Chou. When Pao yü heard this news, "Who'll go," he speedily ascertained of the waiting maids, "and inquire after her? Tell her that cousin Lin and I have sent round to ask how our aunt and cousin are getting on. Ask her what she's ailing from, and what medicines she's taking, and explain to her that I know I ought to have gone over myself, but that on my coming back from school a short while back, I again got a slight chill, and that I'll go in person another day." When Pao yü was yet speaking, Hsi Hsüeh volunteered to take the message, and went off at once, and Mrs. Chou herself took her leave without another word. Mrs. Chou's son in law was in fact Lin Tai-yü, the intimate friend of Yü ts'un. Having recently become involved with a party in a lawsuit on account of the sale of some curios, he had expressly charged his wife to come and sue for the favour of a helping hand. Chou Jui's wife, relying upon her master's prestige, did not so much as take the affair to heart, and having waited till evening, she simply went over and requested lady Feng to befriend her, and the matter was forthwith ended. Section 17